Excuse me. So now we are going to review and learn new things about another concept that you have previous experience with, a little bit of prior knowledge about, and that is intellectual perseverance. From now on, the definition that I give you here is going to be the official definition for intellectual perseverance. It's not going to be that different from any previous. It's not going to be very extremely radically different from any previous ones that I've given you, but it might be a little bit different. So let's review that intellectual perseverance is the disposition and ability to harness all of one's physiological and psychological energies to navigate, comprehend, and execute a cognitive task, especially when it's complex and or challenging. A person who is able to manifest intellectual perseverance in doing so does not give up when things get messy, complex, difficult, or challenging, are willing and able to activate deliberately sustained focus and effort, realize the need to struggle with confusion, to own the confusion that questions and tasks can engender, even if it requires an extended period of time in doing so. All right, so let me go ahead and make some points of iteration before I go over the significance of intellectual perseverance. I'm back. Okay, so one thing that students sometimes misunderstand about intellectual perseverance has to do with asking for help. And I've told students that research in higher education shows that the students who tend to be the most successful are the ones who, in manifesting intellectual perseverance, but still having issues, questions with respect to comprehending the navigation or execution of a task, are the ones who actually get help. But these are the same ones who actually also made a genuine effort, to understand the task at hand. To navigate the task at hand, to comprehend it. So the most successful students get help when they need it. And unfortunately, the least successful students tend to be the ones that don't ask for help. So then a question that I pose to you is, why is it that some students will not ask for help? Why is it that some students might even refuse to ask for help? I've asked this question before in my face-to-face classes, and I've gotten a variety of answers. So one student told me that his dad raised him to be super independent and self-reliant. And so for him and his dad, or at least for his dad, the belief that he tried to transmit to his son is that it's a sign of weakness to ask for help. You should be already smart enough and already good enough at something to not ask for help. And that's a big understanding with how the human brain learns and works. If you were already born or at some point good enough with something, then I don't know. It just, to me, it doesn't make sense. The only reason why you get good enough at something or excellent at something is because at some point you needed help. Even if you don't explicitly ask for help, you're still getting help. So maybe you're not asking for this video to help you understand intellectual perseverance, but in virtue of getting this video and me iterating and making clarifications about common mistakes that people make with respect to their thinking about intellectual perseverance, you are getting help with understanding. So you're getting help whether you want it or not, whether you see something or not as help. This class of philosophy actually helps you to understand your understanding better, to mind your mind better, to stretch your intellectual and moral imagination. Again, you might not have asked for this help, but you're still getting help. Now, I have also heard, and I've got some notes here to make sure that I don't forget anything, but what are some other reasons that people might not ask for help when it comes to an intellectual, cognitive, or academic task, such as writing an essay, researching for an essay, studying and prepping for a test, working through lessons required to construct 3 arguments like the foundational writing assignment from Unit 1? Why is it that some people won't ask for help in the context of trying to navigate, comprehend, and execute a cognitive task? And let's focus within You get what I'm trying to say, the college context, right? And being a college student. Some students have told me that some students might not want to ask for help because they haven't really manifested intellectual perseverance. In other words, they haven't made a serious, genuine, focused, deliberately sustained effort to navigate a given task, whether it's working through all the steps and all the lessons required to have the insights and the knowledge to execute and comprehend what it is that one is supposed to be doing. A student knows that they haven't really given their best effort. A student might even know that they've been the opposite of intellectually perseverant, maybe even intellectually lazy. And so they know that really they don't have the background or the experience or the effort required to work effectively with the professor. And often it is the case that a professor can tell whether or not you've really engaged with the curriculum that you're trying to understand, at least at some base level. Another reason might be that, maybe the student is intellectually shy, intellectually nervous, intellectually anxious. So it could be that a student really has made a sincere, genuine effort through deliberately sustained focus, working through all of the steps, all of the instructions, all of the reading or the research or let's say in my class, the test prep videos, the smart book lessons to really try and understand something. But, they're anxious about speaking to the professor because for some students, like the professor is like, so smart and intelligent. And so they don't want to look dumb or ignorant. And I'm not saying a student ever looks dumb or ignorant. I'm just saying that could be a concern that a student has. So that could also be a reason why students sometimes don't ask for help when it comes to navigating, comprehending, and executing a cognitive task, especially when it is challenging and or complex. I'm trying to think if there's any other reasons. Maybe a student, I had one down, let me see if I have it here on my notes. So I talked about the one not looking dumb or whatnot, and not being prepared. I guess those are the three main ones. So fear of looking dumb or ignorant or whatever, or the student knows that they haven't really put in the effort to get a baseline level understanding, or they've been taught that it's a sign of weakness, or they somehow internalize the idea that it's a sign of weakness to ask for help. So one thing to get really clear on then is a mistake that some students do make, and that is that when you're intellectually perseverant, you do not ask for help. That's being stubborn. So you don't want to be intellectually stubborn. You want to give it your all to try to navigate, execute, and comprehend a cognitive task as a college student or even in the future. Like I had to write a 30-page report for my job about my classes and how I teach and how it connects to the objectives of the college, the learning objectives, how it connects to the state objectives. That was a very complex cognitive task that I had to do, and I wasn't getting a grade for it. It wasn't part of an official college curriculum insofar as a class I was taking for credit. But in my job, I had to create a report that was extremely challenging and extremely complex, and I was actually frustrated by it. They gave me a 20-sheet document that had all these steps I had to go through, and they didn't do any lessons or give us any preparation on how to answer the questions, where we're supposed to get some of the answers. I mean, like they just threw it at us, and so it was frustrating to me because it was intellectually tasking, but I also felt that they had not prepared me. Now, as with the foundational writing assignment, of course, I gave you task A and task 3A, 3B. I made sure I did my part to make sure that you were ready and equipped with the knowledge of argument by definition, and the different things I was looking for in the foundational writing assignment. I'm just showing you, ways in which this concept applies. But another thing that I'm trying to stress right now is that intellectual perseverance, in fact, any of the intellectual virtues, while I am connecting them strongly or mostly with respect to this course or being a college student in academics, they can also apply to working life, professional life, and even your personal life. So I just gave you an example of how I, as a professor in my professional life, had to reflect intellectual perseverance. It took me a month to write that report. It ended up being 30 pages, single-spaced, and I was told that I wrote the best one. Now, this connects to another misunderstanding that some people make about being intellectually perseverant. So it could be the case that when I first got that report, or I first got the template, the 20-page template on the report, Yeah, I looked at it and I was like, this is a lot. And I was like, and how am I supposed to find all these answers? And a lot of it, I had to do a lot of reflection and looking at my own data, but then I had to figure out where to get data that the college had and whatnot. And I, I was feeling very off put by it, right? So I'm a human being too. I don't always do the best job of being intellectually perseverant or intellectually empathetic. These intellectual virtues are things that we aspire to. We're not already perfect at them, but we aspire to be as good as we can with them. And so I just didn't want to. I didn't want to do it. It was complex and it was challenging and it was going to be difficult. But eventually, I started to plug away with it. So when I was first given that task and I looked at what it required, I would give myself a 0 of 5 points for intellectual perseverance. I didn't have the right mindset, attitude, or disposition. Okay, but then as I worked through it, I slowly overcame that. Now, I wasn't still too crazy about the way that they set us up or didn't assist us with that, making sure we understood what we needed to understand. There were no, lessons or videos on anything that was being asked of us. But at the end of the day, I ended up reflecting so much intellectual perseverance that I created 30 pages of single-spaced, documentation and writing and research, and I had the best results. So while I might have gotten a 0 at the beginning of my interaction with with that report that I had to do, by the time I was done with it, I would give myself a 5 out of 5. So what some students will tell me in a scenario like that, where they were maybe intellectually lazy or intellectually off-put by the complexity or challenge of a task, they'll tell me that their ability to manifest intellectual perseverance was at best a 2 or 3, because of their initial attitude and disposition towards the complex, challenging task. Even if they ended up making a very good grade, they still give themselves only a 3. And I think they should give themselves a 5, because when you're talking about whether or not you manifested intellectual perseverance in completing a cognitive task, let's say the foundational writing assignment for this course, and working through all the steps, all the videos, all the written instructions slowly and carefully, taking notes and whatnot, then even if at the beginning of that process of the foundational writing assignment, as an example, you experienced what I experienced with my having to do a report, even if maybe you didn't want to do it, you weren't willing to do it, but you ended up anyway forcing yourself to carefully work through harnessing all of your physiological and psychological resources to navigate and comprehend and execute all that was required in the foundational writing assignment, then by golly, you deserve a 5 out of 5 points. Even if you got a C or a B. If you got a C or a B overall, but you put in your best effort and you used all of your physiological and psychological and intellectual energies and knowledge to do the absolute best that you could, because you really tried to engage with all the videos and whatnot, then even if you got a C and a B, even if you started off not wanting to do the assignment because it was complex and challenging, you still get 5 out of 5 points, because you managed to manifest it by the end of the, in completing the foundational writing assignment. So what I just said there with the example foundational writing assignment can apply to different things, like I'll get into that in a minute, because I really want to get into examples. All right, so do I want to say anything else? Let me look at my notes here and see if there's anything else I want to say. Yeah, so my note here was, it doesn't mean that you reflect intellectual perseverance from the moment that you start on a given cognitive task. What matters is that you end up manifesting all the characteristics associated with intellectual perseverance, as you do slowly, willingly get yourself to engage with all that is required to work through a given cognitive, complex, challenging task. All right, so let's go to the significance then. Achieving profound insight about any topic or subject or assignment or test can require work and time. Hence, you must be willing to do the intellectual work. Behaviors demonstrate those who do reflect and manage to manifest all that is associated with intellectual perseverance demonstrate the realization, that is, their behaviors, the choices they make about things like when to study, when to learn, and what kind of environment to study and learn, how much effort to put into something, Those kinds of behaviors will demonstrate the realization that shortcuts, scamming, skimming, blah, 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 don't always work or lead to deep, authentic, genuine learning. So, for example, it could be that some students only skimmed or kind of halfway paid attention to the lesson on argument by definition, and because of that, they didn't really develop the deep, authentic, genuine knowledge that they needed of how arguments by definition work, and hence their outcome for maybe two of the argument constructions in the foundational writing assignment reflect that. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this back around. Okay, so for the second half of this lecture, or maybe this last third is what it's going to boil down to, I want to tie intellectual perseverance a little bit more specifically to this class. And so I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I don't forget anything. So I've already mentioned quite a bit the foundational writing assignment as an example and of a context, an academic or intellectual context in which you needed to reflect and manifest intellectual perseverance. So just out of curiosity, how much of what you saw on the slide for intellectual perseverance, whether it's did I go over the significance? Yes, the definition and significance. How would you rate yourself? How much intellectual perseverance did you manifest through each and every task, each and every step of the foundational writing assignment? So that's interesting to think about. So that was definitely needed. So I've really emphasized, right, the foundational writing assignment. And when did we do that? Right, during Unit 1. All right, so intellectual perseverance was definitely required of you in that. But how else has your ability and willingness, right? It's about the will, what you were willing to do with respect to other things that you've been doing for this class. And a lot, of course, a lot of what I'm saying would apply to other classes. But like I said, though, it doesn't apply only to academic context. It can apply to other kinds of context. But what about the smart book readings, the smart book lessons, right? So hopefully, I'm hoping that you took what I said seriously in an introduction to your first smart book lesson. I said, don't think of this as just reading and just finding information, just finding answers to questions and prompts. You're not going to achieve deep understanding, genuine learning that way, right? You can't practice intellectual empathy to really get into the thinking place of, philosophy, epistemology, metaphysics, and ethics, of the different theories they're in, if you're not willing to be intellectually perseverant. So there's a cool connection between, right, intellectual empathy and intellectual perseverance. Sometimes the ability to get into the thinking place of a discipline, a branch, or theory, or a thinker, and of course a peer, will require harnessing all your physiological and psychological energy to navigate the theory, to navigate the smart book lesson and the reading, to comprehend, what it is that, metaphysicians are interested in, or the different theories of free will, accurately, clearly, and precisely. So definitely the smart book readings, right? Or the smart book lessons, okay? Are you being intellectually perseverant? Are you really reading all of the pages and trying to engage in learning, real learning, and using the questions and prompts as just kind of points of initial, understanding, an initial check? Or are you seeing it and just reading barely enough to get to some answers and focusing on answers with respect to the smart book lessons instead of giving at least equal weight to the process of slowly, carefully working through the smart book readings in a deliberately sustained, effortful, focused way? So then another way, of course, another dimension or element of the curriculum that intellectual perseverance is definitely very important would be the test folders, right? So in the test folders, I give you a study guide, right? It's usually 2 pages. And I provide additional coaching videos, and I usually have at least one mini lecture that adds new information with respect to something that maybe I think Lawhead does not do a very good job explaining in the Smart Book, or something that I know that maybe Lawhead does a pretty good job, but I think that some more insight is needed. So for example, with the Unit 2 test, I did there was a lecture that you were linked to on the A2, right? An a priori, a posteriori set of lectures. One was like more dynamic and had all this cool media stuff by Mr. Moffitt, but then I also had my little handout or, Word document that I brought up to add further clarification. So, I do a lot on my part as kind of to help you prepare for the test. So like the study guide, the test prep videos, an extra 1 or 2 video lectures focusing on stuff that I know that will be in the test, but maybe the book didn't do a great job on. I even go through each section of the reading and emphasize, hey, this will be a multiple choice. This will be fill in the blank. So I'm bringing all that up for you to connect to the lesson on intellectual perseverance. Did you navigate the Unit 2 test task folder? I think that was task 3 of Unit 2. Did you work step by step, downloading the study guide, working through the test prep videos and the 1 or 2 lectures that were between 5 and 10 minutes long each to really develop a genuine understanding of what the test would be on, what you needed to focus on, and any concepts that I happened to decide to cover? If not, why do you think that was? Do you think it was a lack of intellectual perseverance? Now, of course, sometimes we don't have intellectual perseverance because we're stressed or we have to prioritize other things in life. Like if you're a single mom with a kid, maybe you really wanted to get into the test prep materials, but you had to choose between just doing the best you can and blindly taking the test without a lot of prep, without actually studying and working your way through the study guide the way I coach you in the videos, and getting some sleep because you're a single mom and you need to get at least 5 or 6 hours of sleep. So you just went for that. Like, I get that, but of course, if you're in college, you're expected to be able to do certain things. So it's interesting to consider that. How much intellectual perseverance did you reflect in really working through the Unit 2 task folder as I presented? And did you really work through the outline, taking notes, and actually studying the Unit 2 SmartBook lesson to really prepare? What about for the test for Unit 3? What might have been a lack of intellectual perseverance, or of course I understand time, I'm not ruling that out, but if it wasn't a lack of intellectual perseverance where you just didn't want to watch the videos, you didn't want to work through the study guide, you didn't want to study, how did that work out for you in your test results? Okay, what can you use that? If it's not so great, can you use that as motivation to do better on the Unit 3 and 4 tests, to properly navigate, work through the test prep folder, right? The test folder, the Unit 3 test folder, the Unit test 4 folder, work through the navigation system I have with respect to downloading the study guides, working through my videos, and really studying for it. Of course, if you did really well, chances are is that yes, you definitely manifested intellectual perseverance. You watched all my videos, you took notes, you studied, and so your intellectual perseverance paid off. You got an A or B on the test. Maybe you got a C. All right. So, and of course, and then the last item that I want to focus on specific to this class is that of your other major writing assignments. So the foundational writing assignment accounted for 10% of your grade. You have another writing assignment that is unique to me. I have my own special writing assignments. That's due at the end of the semester, unless you opted for curriculum track B or C by the deadline. If you did not do that, then you have something called objective analysis at the end of the semester. And that is going to have a series of videos where you're going to have a download where you get the instructions on how you do what I call objective analysis. And then you're going to have videos that go with each page of the document that presents some basics. So that is definitely going to require intellectual perseverance because you're going to have to navigate the download, that document, and the specific steps and videos associated with those steps, including examples, further exploration, missing requirements, to do well. Okay, so in the last few minutes of this video, I'm going to read a statement because I want it to come out in a way that is very articulate and concise and straightforward. First of all, before I read the statement, I want to say that all of these intellectual virtues have to do with who you are as a person. So as I stressed in, I think it was task 2 of Unit 2, when it comes to regulative habit-oriented epistemology, I really believe in this stuff. And so it's something that I lecture on every unit, test you on every unit, and encourage you to develop as a person. Not just so you can do well in a college course, but because it's about your character, it's about who you are, and having these character traits and being mindful of them, they can actually help you with so many things in life, not just academic things. All right, so with that said, this is what I want to read to you. Who you are, so intellectual perseverance has to do with who you are as a person, your character, being the kind of person who is intellectually perseverant, who is willing to harness all of their physiological and psychological resources to navigate, comprehend, and execute a cognitive task, especially when it's complex and challenging, will have a direct importance on how much genuine learning you achieve. Genuine learning in terms of what philosophy has to offer and what it can really do for you. If nothing else in this class, how it can help you to think more critically when it comes to your beliefs, ideas, and hence what you decide to do during a pandemic, in light of the pandemic, because of the pandemic, right? But not only can your ability to manifest intellectual perseverance help you, in this way, but of course, it does have an impact on your performance outcomes in this class. So I just want you to keep that in mind, all right? Is that, intellectual perseverance has something to do with your character, who you are as a person. It can definitely have an impact on how much genuine learning you achieve in this class, genuine learning of, philosophy as a discipline, genuine learning about knowledge with respect to epistemology, free will and reality with respect to metaphysics, right and wrong or morality with respect to ethics.